Woo! Guys, that was fun. If you were looking at this face and listening to this voice, you were tuned in to the best kept secret in sports talk. I'm your Philly neighborhood smoking. You are officially on the hot seat. Listen, you saw the thumbnail, baby. We finna talk about Florida State beating the dog shit out of Miami. Paying homage to the ghosts over my left and my right, man. Let's get into it. Ding ding, classes in session. The gospel has arrived. Um, 45-3. Wow. Florida State beat Miami in their trash ass stadium at a final score of 45-3. The University of Coral Gables fell to the Florida State Seminoles at home, if you want to call that a home, in that usually empty ass stadium that Florida State packed out for them, 45-3. It, y'all, if you come here every week, you know what I've been looking for. I've been looking for Florida State to be in midseason form since around midseason. They picked a hell of a time to show up. That was dominant. That they dominated in every facet of the game. Offense, defense, special teams, coaching. It- For that to be Miami's homecoming was as disrespectful. I heard it was their homecoming. That's about it, as disrespectful can get, because you put a homecoming up when you know you're gonna win. Man, that shit looked bad. Um, that it's This is what we've been waiting for, people. And it's almost like Mike Norvell been saying all season. I'm gonna give you what you're looking for when you want to see it the most. And God damn it, he did not disappoint. He delivered. That team delivered. That was beautiful. Florida State beat the shit out of Miami. And it was so gratifying to see because, like I just said, like I've been saying, we've been waiting to see this because we knew it was there. We knew it was there all along. And God damn it, it showed up in that shithole ass stadium. Good job, Mike Norvell. So, let's go ahead and get to it. Let's go ahead and dive into it, man. Florida State is a good football team. I don't know when the last time I've been able to say that. I'm pretty sure it's been at least half a decade. At least half a decade. But Florida State is a good football team. And not just because of what you saw Saturday, it's because of what you've seen this season. And the team has grown, it's gotten better, and the team is getting more healthy. So you expect to see this moving forward. But, let's stick and stay here for the time being. Florida State is a good football team. Florida State, in their wins, they average somewhere around almost 25 points a game. Let that shit sink in. What did I tell y'all last week? Florida State is they probably could have the best offense in this conference. Easy. And they showed you. You know what? Mike has been showing. That's one of the things I can say Mike has done well this season. He's called games really well at times. He's done some head scratching shit. And I've dived into it enough. Not going to take the opportunity to do it right now, but one thing a good offense can do, one thing a complete offense can do, is beat you multiple ways. So, you want to load the box and force us to throw? Okay, we'll beat you with the pass. Have you seen Jordan Travis have career high games every other week? Seems like almost. You've seen different receivers show up throughout the season with big games. They can beat you with an aerial attack. Okay, you want to back up and play the pass? No problem. We'll just run it down your goddamn throat, and they do it mercifully. You look. Before I go on, people, I feel odd saying this. Florida State has a good offensive line. Woo! Now listen, it hasn't been good all season, all right? But the last 3 weeks, when was the last time you seen that offensive line play that well for a 3 week period? Let me know. I'm talking about run blocking, pass blocking, knowing assignments, taking care of stunts, moving people. There's been a lot of chatter about not being able to move people at the line of scrimmage. or in goal line situations. I didn't say they were great, but they are a good offensive line. And one thing that I hate this with every fiber in my bone, is that that offensive line did not get enough pop. They didn't get enough publicity during that Clemson game because, we lost. That offensive line whooped that defensive line at Clemson's ass. And, there wasn't much said about it because of the outcome of the game. But they looked really good in that game. And we all thought it was like an affirmation at that point because, no one expected to see it and maybe it was just a fluke. Well, since then, they've come out and shown us the same thing. They've gotten better as the season has progressed. Hats off to Alex Atkins and hats off to those boys down there because they put in the work. They've listened. They've honed their craft. They've gotten to the point right now to where right now, guys, this feels so gratifying to say. You have to respect Florida State's offensive line. You're not just going to come in there and expect to blow them off the ball anymore. You're not just going to come in there and expect mistake after mistake and give free shots at the quarterback anymore. For the most part, with the exception of one game, Florida State has kept Jordan Travis upright. Jordan Travis is part of the reason why Florida State is bowl eligible with 3 games left to play in the season. So hats off to, again, Alex Atkins, hats off to those players. They've done what they needed to do. And dare I say, we have an offensive line at the present moment that we could be proud about, and I am definitely proud of those guys. But back at the discussion at hand, you want to know what really impressed me about, or at least what I was most happy about? I told you all the Clemson thing was ugly because of how Florida State lost and who was watching. A lot of recruits at that game, and it left a kind of a sour taste in those kids' mouth. And the reason, and I don't talk about recruiting a lot. I cannot choose not to because a Florida State fan turns different. You start talking about recruiting, I don't have the patience to deal with that shit. But I am highly invested in recruiting. I have been for as long as I can remember in all sports. And one thing about it, I know kids are impressionable, and that showing at Clemson bothered me. And I was always wondering how could Florida State recover from that Clemson game in the recruiting world. I think they did. If they didn't, they helped themselves a lot Saturday night because it was a primetime game. It's a rivalry game. And these kids play high school football. They play in rivals. They know, or at least they have an idea, the rivals go either way. On paper, Miami is more talented, and Florida State made Miami quit. Yes. Florida State made Miami quit. They're more talented than Florida State on paper, and Florida State made them quit. I think at that juncture correct me if I'm wrong, going into that game, Miami had a better record. They're not the better team. They're on paper, of course, but they haven't played like it. But based off talent, they are more talented than Florida State. But you couldn't have told me that had I not known it watching that game. Florida State made Miami quit. And if you're a recruit and you see this, whether you're committed to Miami, whether you're interested in Miami, something happened, something shifted in you. Especially if Florida State is on your radar, especially if Florida State has been calling your phone. So the shit that Mario Cristobal now has to sell is vision. The same shit that Florida State has to deal with for the past few seasons. Well, it's Mario's problem now. He can sell that shit. Right now, Mike Norvell has proof of concept. I can only imagine that the phone calls and the text messages and the conversation with recruits went so well this week, or it's going so well, because I've been telling you all year we're on the right track. I've been telling you all year that this team is better than what you may have, but than what's being advertised. Now I showed you. Now Florida State's 6-3, and if I remember correctly, I think Florida State is back in the AP top 25. Miami isn't. Florida State. Imagine being able to tell a recruit this. We, as Florida State, went into the University of Coral Gables. This was a home game for Miami. Now, again, I believe it was their homecoming. They didn't get 200 yards. We beat the shit out of Miami in their home stadium on national television. And we did it with the most bland, vanilla offensive attack you can imagine. We beat them on both sides of the ball. Miami, by the mid third quarter, Miami didn't look like they deserved to be on the same field as Florida State. And this is important because I think I was the first person to report, like I'm a goddamn reporter. I think I was the first person to mention last season that the atmosphere in Tallahassee was electric. The game was great when Miami came in town last year. And the outcome, again, it was in our favor. And if you're a recruit and you're looking around and you're seeing all this, it's captivating. And if you are impressionable, hell, I can see myself playing here in this type of rivalry. I think I was the first person to tell you all, out of all the FSU outlets and podcasts and whatever, Florida State got no recruits from that game. You look at the list of unofficial visitors, you look at the list of official visitors. Florida State didn't get not a one of them. Think about the Miami game. Think about how much steam that Miami game had Florida State going into Florida in the offseason, whatever, right? You had, I got the list right here, had 7 official visitors, 22 in all. 7 official visitors, then all you probably had 22 visitors, a lot of unofficial visitors from the 2022 class, right? Of those 7 official visitors, 0 signed with Florida State. Everybody who committed to Florida State that was at that game was already committed to the school. You did nothing. That game did nothing. Absolutely nothing to put things in your favor for any recruit outside of the ones who are already recruited. Because of how Florida State looked at that time last year. Florida State was still trying to find their way. People were really indecisive about Florida State at that time. This time is different. The outcome is the same, but it's different in the sense of you beat the shit out of them. The game wasn't close at all. The only thing Miami did well Saturday night was find the stadium. That's it. My partner texted me. He was like, "Hey, you watching the game?" I said, "Yeah." He's like, "Shit, what happened? Where did Miami start to lose?" I said, "It's kickoff. Florida State blew the doors off of them." So whoever you were trying to impress, whoever you had a conversation with prior to Saturday, in relation to recruits and prospects and things of that nature, that conversation is vastly different from what you were able to say and put on the field last year, because Florida State was a clusterfuck for the most part last year. Well, it's different this year. Florida State has been on primetime TV, and they've looked good. Florida State looks different. Florida State is different. What you're able to sell now isn't what you were able to sell last season. You don't have to have – it's an uncomfortable conversation recruiting a kid or recruiting a prospect when you're under 500. That's not the case. That's not the situation. That's not the conversation this year. You're in a better position. And I've been telling y'all since Florida State has been on this climb to get back to where they want to be, which is prominence in college football, I've been telling y'all there's 2 things. Once you diagnose what the issue was at Florida State or the issues, and once you get to peeling back the onion, I always said that there were 2 things that were going to get Florida State back to where they needed to be. The first thing was buy-in from the admin and the boosters, and the second thing was recruiting. I think right now we have an AD who understands the dynamic of what he's dealing with, and he's willing to spend some money. I think the boosters have done a really, really good job of getting behind Mike Norvell. I think they're going to continue to do better because he's giving them a product to work with. He's able to sell some things, and he'll give you something that they can buy. The recruiting aspect of it has been a bit slow. The last cycle was important, right? Florida State did a lot of whiffing. That's in the past. Let's not rehash that. That was a really tough day. It was a really fucked up day. This season is different. What Florida State is doing right now is attempting to put together a program that, again, can compete with the big boys when it comes to recruiting. Because the logo is still the logo. The name still sells itself. Because I put it to you like this. When you go out to eat, you go to dinner, a lot of times you don't just get the entree, you get sides. Sometimes when you're recruiting, you have to have something to go along with the name. Well, winning is one of the sides. Culture is one of the sides. Direction is one of the sides. Being able to compete against the big boys is one of the sides. So the conversation you're having right now, it puts a recruit in the mind of, I see proof of concept. I see players getting drafted. I see development. These are the type of things that'll make a kid want to come back to Florida State. And to me, the biggest reason why this is important is because last year I told you all I was worried about the hiring of Mario Cristobal for one reason. It's not because I think he's a good X's and O's, like he's just a good coach. He doesn't really worry me in that aspect. Him being an elite recruiter in the most talent-rich portion of the country, that scared the shit out of me. Understanding that Florida State needed recruits to get back to where they wanted to be. And also understanding that Mike Norvell hasn't been labeled an elite recruiter. I wouldn't even call him a good recruiter. He's probably average at best. I think he's very invested in the recruiting process. I think he does a great job in relation to putting himself in the forefront of, or at least he's in the mix of recruiting kids versus where you see a lot of other prominent coaches. They let their assistants do those jobs, and they come in and they seal the deal in the end. So I think he does do things well, but you still can't label him a good recruit. At least I won't, not at present moment. When you look at him having to go head up against Mario Cristobal in the offseason this year, or I'm sorry, not in the offseason, but in the recruiting season, going towards the December, he'll have a leg up. Mario, like I said before, is going to have to sell, hey, you know what, we're a little bit away and we need you to get what we – that's not the conversation Michael's going to have with a lot of kids this offseason, or again, this recruiting season, I'm sorry. That's refreshing. Because I've told you all before, if I have a child, and this is at the time when Florida State was really bad as it relates to coaching changes from Willie Taggart to Mike Norvell, I wouldn't send my kid there. For what? Why would I knowingly sign off on my kid playing for a loser? My kid has aspirations of going to the NFL. I have no faith that you can get him there. Well, a parent wouldn't feel that way anymore. A kid wouldn't feel that way anymore. And when you're dealing with somebody who has the recruiting chops of a Mario Cristobal, it is important that you one-up him in every area and every facet that you can. One of those facets that you can control is on the football field in prime time in their home stadium. That was a bad loss for Miami for a few reasons, because it's almost like a double whammy for them. Somebody's going to leave that program as it relates to I'm going to decommit, or I was going to commit and now I'm not going to. That's one whammy. The second one could be they're probably going to come to Florida State. So not only did Florida State keep a good recruit from going to you, they're probably going to get some of those guys. Read between the lines in what I'm saying. That's the best I can do for you right now. I don't want to give off any type of conversations I've had, but just read between the lines here. Beating the snot out of your rival gets the fan base excited. The fan base they were on the ropes just like Florida State was after that 3-game stretch. And, you want to get fans more enthused. You want to get the fans where they were when you were 4-0. And I think this helps get you back there. It sets up for you to run the table for the rest of the season. I said you're going to find out a lot about Florida State these last 5 games, and we're starting to find out. I told you all that Florida State should win all 5 games, and they should win 4 of those games handedly. This was one of those 4 games. And good teams beat the shit out of bad teams. Even if Miami wasn't a bad team, they became a bad team Saturday. I don't think people understand what it is to break another team's will. They quit. I don't think they did nothing well. I cannot get past how poorly coached that game was, how poorly executed that game was, and how Miami looked like a shell of themselves. Because a lot of people had Miami picked to win that other side of the division, the other side of the conference, the Coastal. How? I told you all a few weeks ago, a lot of people lied about who they thought and what was going to happen at the start of the season. I knew they were lying in. I just wanted to see proof of it. You look at Texas A&M, for example. You look at Miami, a few other schools. They are not as good as they were advertised. Miami never was. I didn't understand the hype of it all. A lot of those kids have regressed. This isn't a Miami show, and I usually don't spend this much time talking about it, but I usually don't spend this much time talking about other schools. But I'm harping on this to make you guys understand, when it comes to recruiting, the biggest issue in the state of Florida is keeping those kids inside of Florida. So when Florida is popping, when the FSU is popping, Miami is popping, the state is more appealing. It makes these kids want to stay home. Well, right now, with Miami being, again, a shell of itself, with Florida, you don't know what to say about Florida. Well, I don't, because one moment they look great, the next moment they look terrible. They're not a good football team. Right now, the cream of the crop, the pick of the litter right now is Florida State. It's time to capitalize on that. I told you all a week or two ago as well that the ACC isn't as strong. It's time to capitalize on that, or at least it was, into that. We should have beat the NC State guys. I can't get over this shit. We should have beat the NC State. But again, the ACC is weak, man. You know, you need to capitalize on that when you have the opportunity to. And right now, Florida State is making amends for that 0-3 stretch. You don't understand how beating your opponent, not just your opponent, but how beating your rival at home by 42 points helps everything. I reference having a sold out Boston College game, right? And then you looked at people leaving early for Clemson. You look at the game in which Georgia Tech, and there were a lot of empty seats in that stadium. Well, you're getting people's attention again, and that's important. Before I get out of here, Adam Fuller. You know what? He's all right. That hurt. My partner was messing with me on Twitter, and I was like, you know, why the hell I got to be the good guy? Why I got to be the responsible guy to do what's right? I don't want to give that man no fucking props because I dislike his ass so much. But Alan Fuller has not been bad this year. He's had his moments where I want to kick him in his fucking face. But let me say this. Call me what you want to call me. I still think FSU should upgrade a defensive coordinator. But if they didn't, I wouldn't be mad at it because he has earned his paycheck this season. Um, you look at what he's had to deal with, the injuries he's had to deal with, not being able to run his system and not do things schematically as he would like to based off injuries and probably lack of talent in some areas. He is as big of a reason of Florida State being 6-3 as Jordan Travis and Mike Norvell is, and Alex Atkins as well. He's done his part. And when you have a team, and you know, football is the ultimate team sport, when you have somebody who does their part, it is immensely important because you don't have to worry about it. I am fine. You know, don't get me wrong, with Florida State, running quarterback still scared the heebie-jeebies out of me. But every week, I don't expect Florida State to go out there and give up 40 points. And that's a step in the right direction. I don't expect Florida State to just get embarrassed defensively. They've had their stuff. They've had their moments. They've had their moments to whereas you wonder what was going on. Like, did y'all even practice this week? You know, but it hasn't been as many moments as you've seen for the past 2 seasons. So progression, traction, that's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. And Adam Fuller has done that. So you have to tip. If I'm going to ridicule you in public, I always have to give you your props and praise you in public. Hats off to Adam Fuller in that defense because he was dealt the raw hand as it relates to Mike Norvell probably not coaching and managing games in the sense that would help the defense, meaning putting them in precarious situations, putting their backs against the wall, and that team and that defense coming out and responding and answering the bell when it was called. Again, the injuries he's had to deal with, he's had his issues that were out of his control, but he did what he could, and for that, job well done, Mr. Adam Fuller. Same thing goes with Mike Norvell. I'm going to ridicule you in public. I gotta praise you in public. And there are some things he's done well that I don't hear enough people talking about. He bet the house on Jordan Travis when it was the least popular thing to do. And he's made all of us eat crow. All of us, people like myself. He made all of us eat crow because he did the right thing. He did not bring in a transfer QB when it was widely thought of that he should have because, number one, we didn't think Jordan Travis progressed enough to just be given the job. And number two, you just assumed he was going to be hurt at some point of the season and miss games. He hasn't missed a game, at least not that I can remember. And he's progressed as a quarterback. So him betting the house on Jordan Travis and giving Jordan Travis a full offseason of knowing that he's the man, putting that pressure on him and making him become better, it's working. You look at how efficient Florida State has been, incredibly efficient in the transfer portal. You look at Florida State's defense, their 3 best players came out of the transfer portal. He's been incredibly efficient. You look at how he's remade the offense largely due to the transfer portal. So uh, that's another spot where you have to tip your hat to him. The play calling has been better, probably because the players are better, but the play calling has been better, and he's done things conducive of winning. Don't get me wrong, I've been critical of him at times, but as a whole, the play calling has been spot on. And like I mentioned earlier, there was no need for Jordan Travis to throw 30 times. Um, he saw that this was going to work, meaning running the ball, and he did it. That's good play calling, people. Wasn't spectacular, wasn't fancy, wasn't eye catching. It was what was needed. And to me, that's impressive. When there have been times where Florida State was called, like I said before, to throw the ball, and he hasn't done it all the time. He hasn't done it all the time, but I think he knows the strengths of this team, and I think he knows the weaknesses as well, and he's done a great of a job as masking those weaknesses as he possibly could have. So for that, I tip my hat to him. Yeah, I wasn't going to keep you all long. I just wanted to come in here and share my joy with you, have you share your joy with me about what happened this week. But, like the late, great Kobe Bryant said, job ain't finished. Florida State has 3 more games. It is not about being 6-3. It's about what you could do next Saturday to be 1-0 for that week. So they finished this week 1-0. What is your record going to be next week? Going up there to Syracuse, it's going to be loud. That team is looking to get back on track, so they're not just going to lay down. Go up there and you handle business. You go up there and you handle business. Why? Because that's what good football teams do. I don't give a damn how you do it. I give a damn how it's done. I don't give 3 drops of monkey piss how it looks. Let's get a W. Good football teams go in hostile environments and they win football games. They went into a hostile environment in New Orleans. They won the football game. And you touch on that briefly. LSU looks good, right? LSU looks pretty good. I want y'all to know Florida State beat that team and the score was not indicative of the game. Florida State kind of whooped LSU ass. And you knew it, right? The score didn't dictate it. You knew how the game ended didn't dictate what really happened in that game. But they were out-coached. They were outclassed. Florida State beat LSU pretty fucking good. And that's why all of this started. It all culminates from the ending of that game. You knew Florida State had something special. You knew that the potential for this team doubled whatever you thought it could have been. And we've all just been waiting for the moment to where, what all this shit manifested into what we saw in Coral Gables. And here we are. So Florida State continue being a good football team. Because the best part about this shit is the next step is for you to be a great football team. But one step at a time. That's all the time I'm giving you. That's all the time I got. Listen, man, hit that like button. Please, please, please hit that like button. For those of you all who share this content, I cannot thank you enough. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe. You'll know when these videos drop because I drop them. God knows it isn't a set date anymore because my schedule is so crazy. But hit that like button, hit those subscribe buttons, man. You can all reach me again, as you know, at the Hot Seat 19 on Instagram. You can reach me on Twitter at the Hot Seat 19. I appreciate your time. I cannot stress enough. If you listen to me talk every week, if you listen to me talk once a week, I don't give a shit. I appreciate it. Going to try to be back after the Syracuse game. I don't quite know because my schedule is hectic. But if I don't, we'll be in touch at some point, man. You are officially off the hot seat. Y'all be good.